There were a number of factors about the West that pulled people, both immigrants and United States citizens, in that direction. The availability of cheap land made the West a very attractive place for people with little to no money to start a life for themselves. The national government passed the Homestead Act in 1862. This law allowed for anyone over 21 or the head of a household to buy 160 acres for a small fee, provided that they agreed to farm it and live on it for 5 years. Once they did that, the land was theirs to do with as they chose. If they were unable to remain on that land for the 5 years, as happened to some, they had the option of trying to sell it to other settlers in the region or back to the government, who was then able to sell the land again. The act said nothing about having to be a U.S. citizen, and in fact, a large number of immigrants took advantage of this. Anyone who took advantage of this act became known as a homesteader. Also in 1862, the national government passed the Morrill Land-Grant Act. This act allowed state governments to sell public lands, provided that the money they made from the sale went to fund colleges dedicated to the agricultural and mechanical arts. These A&M schools were established to try and teach settlers the best way to farm very difficult land, land that only 50 years earlier had been called the Great American Desert by Zebulon Pike. Many of these schools have since dropped the A&M from their name and have become just the state university. Before 1869, getting to the West was a difficult and arduous task, one that prevented a number of people from moving. However, the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad changed all of that. The Pacific Railway Act of 1862 had granted two companies the right to build the first transcontinental railway between Nebraska and California. The Central Pacific Railway Company built east from Sacramento, while the Union Pacific Railway Company built west from Omaha, Nebraska. Both companies were given enormous patches of land on either side of the railroad line to sell as a way for them to fund the building of the railroad and make a profit for themselves. The railroad was built almost entirely by immigrants, mostly from China and Ireland, and was brought together with the nailing of the Golden Spike in Promontory Point, Utah in 1869. It now became cheaper to move goods and people around the country, and a number of national companies were born because of that ease of transportation. Finally, the discovery of precious metals encouraged people to move west in an effort to strike it rich. The first wave of miners arrived in California in 1849 after the discovery of gold at Sutter's Mill just outside Sacramento the year before. This is where the term 49er comes from. The city with the closest and easiest access to the Pacific Ocean was San Francisco, which developed into one of the more important cities of the region. When silver was discovered in Nevada 10 years later in 1859, a second wave of miners moved west to find their fortunes. The Comstock lode produced an estimated $50 million of silver, with some gold as well, and led to the development of mining towns such as Virginia City to take care of the miners' needs and to offer them a place to trade their precious metal. Not everyone who went west to mine and seek their fortunes made it all the way to their original destination. For whatever reason, some stopped along the way and joined the homesteaders as farmers, ranchers, or cowboys. Whatever the reason, the people that went west in the years surrounding the Civil War quickly populated a difficult area of the United States that might not have been ready to become part of the country for some time. These people helped to blur the lines of the frontier in the country, so that by 1890, the United States Census Bureau could declare that there was no more frontier in the nation. The historian Frederick Jackson Turner, in his Frontier Thesis in 1893, claimed that the breakdown of the frontier was a symbol for what made the United States a great nation, able to overcome all obstacles in its path.